Chapter 7, we are back hearing from Grace. Berry picking is one of my favorite things to do at the Oasis. The woods around here are like an all-you-can-eat buffet. I love strawberries and raspberries, but wild ones are 10 times more delicious. The wild strawberries at the Oasis are small, and natural sugar in them is so concentrated that you get an intense flavor explosion that's better than any candy. If we pick a lot, we take our baskets into the kitchen. They make the most amazing pies and shortcakes. Not that I've ever tasted one, Tyrell complains. They've all got gluten in them. Well, talk to Evangeline, I promise. Sometimes you can make a pie crust out of potato flour. Forget it, he says mournfully. If I'm eating potatoes, it'd better be French fries. You know Magnus doesn't believe in fried foods, I chide him gently. Everybody should believe in French fries, he insists. Poor Tyrell, but to tell the truth, I'm getting kind of sick of hearing about his allergies. I lost a lot of my sympathy for him back at Jet's cottage when he helped himself to some of that barbecue. Why would anybody eat something with a name like pulled pork is a mystery to me. Anyway, we're making our way through the woods, avoiding the main trails, which are picked over berry-wise. I have to confess that we're eating as much as we're picking, but our baskets are pretty full. Even though he's a sad sack, Tyrell admits that the strawberries are delicious. Then, jackpot! We stumble on a stand of bushes that are totally hung with blackberries. We're harvesting like crazy when a ray of sunlight breaks through the trees and I get a look at my berry-picking partner. He has so many hives that they've grown together to make his entire face and neck purple. I slap the basket out of his hand. It hits the ground, spilling berries everywhere. You said you're not allergic to berries. I'm not, he puts his hand up. I can have strawberries, raspberry. He looks down at his left hand, which still holds a fistful of bumpy blackberries. Uh-oh. So Tyrell has to run back to find Laurel, the nurse who serves as our healthfulness pathfinder. That leaves me shambling through the woods, topping up my basket and carrying his. I've just made it out of the trees when I hear a wild commotion coming from the direction of the bath. A second later, 2 older ladies dripping bathing suits come running towards me looking terrified. What's wrong? I ask them. The bath, one of them gibbers. There's a horrible lizard in there. From the fuss they're making, you would think it was at least a T-Rex terrorizing our hot spring. But when I get to the bath, it seems empty. No lizard, no people. That's when I spot it. A tiny brown and beige body about 8 inches long, including the tail. It's at the edge of the pool, trying and failing to scramble out of the hot water. Without thinking, I drop both baskets and rush to the rescue. I lean over the edge and extend my hands under the slender, scaly body, but the poor little guy is scared of me and wriggles away. Undaunted, I grab the bug dipper and, wielding it by the pole, I slide the mesh net underneath the lizard and draw it out of the hot water. The eyes gleam bright in the sun, and I know it's happy to be free of all that bubbling heat. I frown. It sounds so impersonal. A thing, not a living creature. As I draw the lizard out of the mesh and into my arms, he flips over for a second, and I can see that he's male. He squirms for an instant and then relaxes and snuggles his little head into my neck. There, I coo. You're safe now. Can you believe it? I'm talking to a lizard, a cold-blooded critter with no hope of understanding that I'm someone who means him no harm. And yet that feeling comes over me as exactly what I remember from the first time I put my arms around my Benito. He was a rescue dog, so sad and timid. When I reached out for him, he shied away in fear. He needed me, just like this lizard needs me. If I hadn't scooped him out of the hot water, it would have killed him. With my index finger, I stroke the brown leather skin of his little snout. In answer, the little guy chomps down on my pointer. It happens in the blink of an eye, and for such a tiny creature, it's one heck of a bite, too. It almost breaks the skin. When I yank my hand away, I can clearly count the impressions of at least 14 needle-like teeth. Some gratitude. I saved your life, pal, I admonish him. My voice must scare him because he freezes. I'm not yelling or anything like that, but I must seem like a giant to him with a voice like thunder. I hold him a little tighter, and he seems to relax. Where could he have come from? The woods around here have plenty of wildlife. Squirrels, birds, chipmunks, snakes, possums, gophers, but not a lot of lizards. He probably wandered onto the Oasis property from the river. That's why he ended up in the bath. The poor little guy got lost, and when he saw the bubbling water, he must have assumed that's where he belonged, and by the time he realized his mistake, he was half-boiled and couldn't get out. That's what I do. I'll decide. I'll take him back to the river. Good news, Needles, I whisper. We're going home. Abandoning my berry baskets by the bath, I start across the center, cradling the little body gently. But as soon as the river comes into view, I know it isn't right. The saline is hardly the mighty Colorado with white water rapids, but still the steady flowing current would be too much for a tiny creature like Needles. That's probably how he wound up here in the first place. He blundered into the river and got washed downstream. It must have been pretty terrifying. Poor Needles. I stop in my track. Oh wow, I've done it. I've given him a name and he's mine. Now what am I supposed to do? There are no pets allowed at the Oasis. Otherwise, Mom and I would bring Benito for sure. Every summer it breaks my heart to leave him behind. On the other hand, this is life and death for Needles. He's wrong for the woods, but he's wrong for the river too. It makes me wonder where he came from. He doesn't seem to fit in anywhere. I reach the decision. If there's no place for him, I'll make one. It doesn't count as breaking the rules if Needles isn't an official pet, and he isn't. He's a fellow creature who needs my help. I know Mom is still in the meditation center with Ivory, so I should have enough time to hide him somewhere. Mom and I always treat ourselves to new flip-flops every time we come to the Oasis. One of the empty shoe boxes should be the perfect size habitat for a little fellow like Needles. He doesn't seem to mind the motion as I carry him back to our cottage, but once we're inside the air conditioning, he gets squirmy. I'm pretty sure it's because he prefers the steamy temperature outside. Hold still, I tell him in a low voice. It's only for a minute. I dig one of the shoe boxes out of the closet and pop him inside. He's not a fan. He makes about 20 circuits of the confined space in the first few seconds. Using a ballpoint pen, I punch a few air holes in the lid, but it doesn't make him any happier. I guess when you're used to the soft earth and grass of nature, smooth cardboard must feel like the inside of a prison cell. I rush out, drop to my knees, scoop up several handfuls of dirt and leaves inside the shoebox. I feel bad for Needles, who surely doesn't understand what's happening. To him, it must seem like the sky is falling, but once the action is over, he actually settles down a little, so I settle down too. For the first time, I realize I'm breathing really hard, as if I've just run a mile. What have you got there? I jump up so fast that I almost lose my grip on the shoebox, tossing it into the face of the person standing over me. It's Brooklyn Feldman. Wouldn't you know it? I follow every rule 99.9% of the time, and the one time I'm doing something sneaky, the local CIA has to show up. My face burns. Brooklyn has an even worse Oasis participation record than Jet. She isn't openly a jerk like him, but the way she ghosts everybody else is almost as disrespectful. She even blows off meditation. It's like the Pathfinders have nothing to offer her, so she has to go off doing her own thing. Come to think of it, she and Jet are perfect for each other. They should get married someday. Why ruin two houses? Hi, Brooklyn. I try to sound casual, but I'm breathing too hard to pull it off. What's in the box? She asks, peering down through the horn-rimmed glasses. When I realize she's trying to see in through the air holes, I jerk the box away. Nothing, I snap, and quickly add, rocks, for painting and arts and crafts. That's when Needles betrays me by running around the box like a crazy person, bumping against the sides. I shake the box, but it's too late. Brooklyn figures it out. There's something alive in my shoebox. When she leans down and peeks inside the lid, I don't even try and stop her. Needle gazes back at her, mouth open, needle teeth showing. Cool lizard, where'd you get it? I don't know where he came from, I admit, but I found him at the bath. She whistles. Nice move. There's no way a cold-blooded animal could survive a hot water like that. It takes me aback a little. I never considered that Brooklyn would think saving Needles was a good idea. Do you know a lot about reptiles, I ask? I had a gecko once. It died. She takes a closer look. The concentration in her eyes is magnified by her thick glasses. I don't know what kind of lizard this is, though. What's his name? Needles. Watch your fingers. Brooklyn, who had been reaching into the box, pulls her hand away. Are you going to keep him? I know I'm not supposed to, but if he ends up in the bath again, he'll die, and I don't think he's strong enough to handle the river. Brooklyn nods solemnly. And the woods are the wrong place for him. He wouldn't last an hour with the badgers and the hawks. But where can we hide him, I muse. I can't keep him in my cottage. My mom might find him. Besides, I'm pretty sure the air conditioning is too cold for him. She thinks it over. Follow me, she says finally. She leads me clear across the Oasis property, past the Welcome Center, right in the northern boundary of the property, not far from the road. There are a number of sheds and small utility buildings. In all the time I've spent at the Oasis, I've never been to this area before. What's all this for, I ask. Mostly maintenance, she replies. Paint, carpentry tools, lawn, and tree stuff. It makes sense. We come to the Oasis for its wellness and healthy living, but a retreat this size needs constant attention, like painting and general repairs. How awesome are Magnus and the Pathfinders at keeping it in the background so the guests can enjoy the beauty of the place and be whole. Past the cluster of maintenance buildings at the edge of the woods, we come across one last shed. I can already see that this structure isn't as in good shape as the rest of them. The white paint is faded and the padlock on the door is rusty. Brooklyn taps it with a stone and it comes apart. I'm amazed. How do you know about this place? She shrugs. I found it when I was wandering around. Translation, she found it when the rest of us were canoeing or ziplining and she was blowing us off. Or maybe she really is CIA and this is where spy services hang out, along with the British M16, the Israeli Mossad, and the Russians. I chuckle to myself, but I'm really not joking. There really is a side of Brooklyn that she's not showing everybody else. I feel a little guilty about keeping an animal, I admit. What's Magnus going to think if he finds out? Brooklyn seems unconcerned. I don't lose too much sleep over what Magnus thinks. I'm surprised by the comment, although she isn't speaking in an insulting way like Jet would. Brooklyn says it as a statement, of fact, like 2 + 2 = 4. Jet would probably also call him Nimbus. I love Magnus, I assert. He's devoted his life to setting people on the path of wellness. She smiles at me as if I've said something funny and then opens the door, ushering me in ahead of her. It's a simple wooden shed with a prefab metal floor. The quick once-over confirms that there are no gaps or cracks large enough for Needle to squirm his tiny body through and escape. It's perfect, I whisper into the shoebox. You'll be safe here. The air inside the shed is moist and very hot, just right for Needles. He'll need water, Brooklyn says. She's no dope when it comes to animals. I'm impressed in spite of myself. We survey the small space. There are several old paint cans along with an assortment of brushes, rollers, and trays. Brooklyn sorts through the trays and selects the cleanest one. There's a tap outside the garage where they store the golf carts. She's back in a couple of minutes, the paint tray brimming with water. I place the shoebox on the floor and open the lid. Here you go, Needles. Have a drink. Before the words are out of my mouth, he's off like a shot. He covers the distance to the paint tray in a fraction of a second. But instead of drinking, he splashes right into the water, and just like that, all of the action is over. He's as still as a statue, submerged in the paint tray up to his nostrils. Wow, Brooklyn comments. He likes it here. He must have done something right. I'm pleased too, but also a little nervous. I guess this is normal for a lizard. What does he eat? We'll sneak him some stuff from dinner tonight, Brooklyn decides. See what he likes. That sounds good to me. What doesn't sound good are the words like, we. Brooklyn talks a good game, but I can't escape the feeling that I can't totally trust her. On the other hand, I might need her help. She seems to know a thing or two about the oasis that nobody else does. At least none of the other kids. That could come in handy since we can't let the adults find out we're looking after poor little Needles who's lost and must be far from home. If the tables were turned and it was my Benito in danger, I'd want him to have all the support he could get.